So, we've done the Doctors. Now it's time for the Masters.
Conceived as the Moriarty to the Doctor's Sherlock Holmes, the Master, over the past 50 years, has become one of the Doctor's most enduring and iconic enemies. Today I'll be taking a look at the 9 actors who have played the role, and ranking them on how good a job I feel they did. Unlike the Doctors, the Master hasn't been played anywhere near as consistently over the years. There have been some really amazing incarnations and some genuinely very, very poor ones. For continuity's sake, I am restricting this to just the TV show and excluding all Big Finish, which means you won't see James Dreyfus or Alex McQueen on this list. And also, while I recognise this will harm masters who have primarily done Big Finish work, such as Sir Derek Jacoby and Geoffrey Beavers, I haven't heard all of Big Finish, but I have seen the whole TV shows. That means there are 9 masters to deal with, so without further ado, let us begin. In 9th place, and surprising absolutely no one, is Eric Roberts. What on earth were they thinking? I feel bad for Eric Roberts because I feel like he probably didn't know anything about the Master. He was an American, he probably didn't grow up on the show, he probably didn't understand the character he was playing and was just going off what the directors told him, but what the directors were telling him was awful. He is the reason that I value that movie so low, and I think he's a big part of the reason why Doctor Who never got rebooted on the back of this film. He clearly didn't have a clue about the character, and it gets played so poorly. First of all, he's like the Terminator, and then he's quite almost emotionless, and at the end of the film he just switches up again and decides to go all camp when he decides to dress for the occasion. There's the sunglasses, the relationship with Lee, the weird green goo that comes out of his mouth that freezes a bunch of guys. I have no idea what they were doing here. I don't think they had any idea what they were doing here. And I kind of feel bad for Eric Roberts, but at the same time, there is no other contender to be bottom of this list. In 8th, I've got Peter Pratt. Now, Peter Pratt plays the Master in The Deadly Assassin, which is a very good Doctor Who story. And he is good in it. To be honest, there is a huge leap in quality between 9th place and 8th. And I think that the look is really creepy. It fits in perfectly with the Gothica of the Baker years, and it's really good to see the Master so decrepit and degenerate and so creepy looking that he's literally a skeleton just clinging to life. However, it's this look that limits Peter Pratt's performance because you cannot see anything happening underneath that mask. It's just the skull and the eyes, but you can hardly even see his mouth moving and his eyes. They never change. They're just sort of goggly eyes almost. There is a sense of the history between the Doctor and the Master, which is a really important element to me with any Master, is how they feel playing against their Doctor, and there does feel like there is some connection between Peter Pratt and Tom Baker. However, the eyes and the look, as creepy as it is, as effective as it looks like in a photograph, when you see it on screen, it just doesn't quite work. In 7th, I have Geoffrey Beavers, who played the Master in The Keeper of Traken, which is an okay story. It's nowhere near up to the standard of The Deadly Assassin, but it marked the return of the Master after quite a considerable absence. And I think he did a pretty decent job with what he's given. The facial prosthetics are much less restricting than Peter Pratt had, even though they're basically playing the same version of the Master. He's still just clinging onto life, trying to get a new body. And you really get a sense of menace from his performance. The main problem here is the fact that he spends most of his time sitting behind a screen controlling events, and you don't get a sense of the history between him and Tom Baker's Doctor because they hardly share any screen time together. So I can't really compare him against my top 6 because to me the most important factor in what makes a good Master is how they feel with their Doctor, and you don't get a sense of that with Geoffrey Beavers because he spends so little time up against Tom Baker. In 6th place, and here's your controversial opinion for this video, I've put Anthony Ainley, who played against 4 different Doctors over 9 years. Now, Ainley is a fan favourite to many, but to me he's just so let down by the writing over his episodes. The Master just becomes a joke over this era. He turns up again and again and again, and loses again and again and again, with plans that make less and less sense. The epitome of this is the season 20 finale, The King's Demons, where his plan is to conquer the universe by disrupting the Magna Carta, because he thinks that will destabilise Earth's entire history and allow him to conquer and begin to conquest the universe. He's saddled with bad writing and he becomes a total non-entity of a threat, which is why the show had to introduce the Rani as another Time Lord to face off against the Doctor, because the Master wasn't doing it anymore. He wasn't doing it for audiences of the time, and he certainly wasn't doing it for me. And the thing is, I like some aspects of Anthony Ainley's portrayal, and I've heard that he wanted to play the character darker, but the producer, John Nathan Turner, wouldn't allow it, and what we ended up with was just a sort of pantomimish, cartoonish version of Roger Delgado's original. It's too camp, it's too over the top, it's all die, Doctor, die, and the evil laugh. He became a pantomime villain, quite frankly, and it's a real shame because I think Anthony Ainley shows some really good points, and the reason that I've put him even as high as this is because in the episode Survival is the one time I think he really, really nailed it. And he plays really well up against Sylvester McCoy, and I just wish he got to play the role more like that more, because I think in that episode he really was fantastic. In fifth, I've gone for the current Master, Sasha Dewan, and here's another one who I've got conflicted feelings about, because I think he's a phenomenal actor, and he has brought something incredibly menacing to his portrayal of the Master, but I'm just not a fan of the writing in his era, and I think if the writing gets sorted out and they make his character a bit more consistent, I think he could be one of the best Masters. I remember when he turned up in the end of Spyfall Part 1, I was apprehensive because I thought he might end up being just a knock-off John Simm with the laughing and the clapping and sort of bouncing around the place. But then I thought in Spyfall Part 2 he brought something quite dark and menacing to the role. The problem is, however, with the writing, they've tried to write him as one of the darkest incarnations of the Master we've ever seen, whilst also maintaining some 80s level of camp. They tried to make him cruel and menacing, something that Sasha Dewan nails, but also give him some weird 80 levels of camp. You know, some of his laughing and just stupid moments. It's red because it's soaked in the blood of our people. I don't think you can be totally menacing whilst also having to play it that camp and over the top. And the thing is, Sasha Dewan has the potential to be one of the great Masters, but I feel like the writing is just holding him back at the moment. Also, side note, if it's made canon that Dewan comes before Missy, I would be very happy, and he'll probably go up the list. And if they make it clear that he comes after Missy, and then that's retconning her entire redemption arc, he will drop down this list like a stone, because that would hack me off so much. In fourth, it's the divisive John Simm, who in his 3 appearances as the Master basically plays 3 totally different versions of the character. One that I love, one that I think is decent, and one that I'm not a huge fan of. He begins with this crazy, wacky, bouncing off the walls performance in Series 3, and I don't really enjoy his take in Series 3. I know John Simm agrees he didn't really like the Master that he played until Series 10, actually. I know he's supposed to be sort of an evil version of Tennant, but I just don't think it really works. The weird thing is, his performance in The End of Time, I think, is very good, even though I don't really like what is done with his character when he becomes all Skeletor and superhero, shooting bolts of lightning out of his hands and all that kind of weird stuff, but he still plays it really well. And the fact is, even though I don't overly enjoy his 2 performances in the Tennant era, I think when he's actually up against Tennant, they have a really good chemistry, really good rapport, and you can feel the weight of time behind their friendship, and that is a very important aspect for me when I think about Doctor-Master duos. I always think Tennant and Simm, they were very, very good together. And yet for me, the performance that I love most from John Simm is from World Enough in Time and Dr. Falls, because that is the time that he properly played the Master. He got the goatee, he got the outfit, and he was just cruel, so cruel. You know, he manipulated Bill for 10 years so that he could turn her into a Cyberman. He's willing to kill himself just to avoid the possibility that he might end up teaming up with the Doctor one day. I think his performance was evil, it was menacing, and it was cruel, and he didn't need an evil plan. I think that was easily his best performance. And in third place, I've gone for Sir Derek Jacoby. Now, it's a testament to how much I love Derek Jacoby's performance in this, because I'm breaking my own rules of this list. he doesn't have a lot of screen time, and he doesn't have really any screen time other than about 2 seconds with a doctor. So, why is he so good? Quite frankly, charm and menace. Tons of menace. When he looks around at that camera and he says, "I am the master," you know you are screwed. The first time I watched the episode, I didn't even know who the master was. You know that it's a threat. A really big threat. In just 5, maybe 6 minutes as the master, he totally establishes himself. You know, you get his character. He's cruel, he's evil, he's twisted. He yells at Chantho and then brutally murders her. And the thing was, he was so sweet as Professor Yana, and then he just turns so drastically when he opens that watch. It's such an amazing moment. You hear Anthony Ainley's laugh and Roger Delgado shouting that line from the Daemons, and then you just see in his face that Professor Yana is gone and we are all in trouble now. And I just wish that we had more time with Derek Jacoby. I know he's done Big Finish, but as I said, I'm not counting that. But even just off about those 5 minutes, he is this high up. I think he's an amazing incarnation of the Master. In second place is Michelle Gomez's amazing performance as Missy. And these top two really are a testament to two actors who have amazing chemistry with their doctors. And Michelle Gomez and Peter Capaldi have unbelievable chemistry. What I really love about her incarnation is she isn't wacky like John Simm. I think some people think she's wacky. I don't think she is. She's just an absolute motor mouth, and her dialogue, usually provided by Stephen Moffat, is just amazing. I absolutely love it. She can be dark yet funny, and what makes her character feel menacing is that you never know what she's going to do next. She's just so random and off the wall. And what I really loved and what really sets her apart, and I hinted at it earlier when I said that I hope that Dewan's Master is before Missy, because I love her redemption arc. I think it's fantastic. I think it's one of the best things Stephen Moffat did when he was in charge of the show, and I'm a huge Moffat fanboy. I think she's the most three-dimensional version of the Master that we've ever got. Gone are the pantomime villain, and just this really well-nuanced, well-written character. And I love Michelle Gomez. If you're wondering why we have a female doctor now, why gender change in Time Lords is a thing, it's because Michelle Gomez absolutely nailed this part, proving that the gender change of the Time Lord can 100% work. I also love how in Series 10 she turns up as much as Delgado did in the middle of the Pertwee years. She's in loads and loads of stories, particularly in Series 10, but she's scattered all the way through Capaldi's run. And also, I love her ending. I think it's a perfect, fitting end for the character. It's the ending that Roger Delgado wanted for the character. He wanted the character to die saving the Doctor, but the Doctor to never be quite sure if there was an ulterior motive behind his actions. She does turn good, but the Doctor will never know. She died without witness, without reward. It's the only way to truly do good things. I just think it's an absolutely perfect ending in The Doctor Falls, and I did at the time wish that they never brought the Master back. Obviously, Chibnall has ruined my dreams there. He's ruined them on many occasions, but this one particularly, which is really why I hope that she is the last incarnation of the Master, because I think it is the perfect end. And that means in first place is the original, the best, Roger Delgado. He is the Master. When I started watching Classic Who, I started at Pertwee, and I remember when I first got to Roger Delgado, straight away I was like, this guy is the best Master. And every time I talk about him with my brother, he always says, "Is that the one you call the Master?" And this guy is the Master, the one and only. And his chemistry with Jon Pertwee is just amazing, and I love how he pops up time and time again. And he's the perfect counterpoint to Jon Pertwee, because he's very charming and suave. He doesn't call Joe, he calls her Miss Grant. And he's just so charming and charismatic, and yet he's dark and menacing. And I love you can totally buy that he's hypnotic, because he's just got those eyes that just bore into you. You will obey me. He's just the best iteration of the character. And maybe I'm slightly biased because I absolutely love the Pertwee era, but he has got so many good stories. And even though he keeps coming back and he keeps getting beat, he never feels like a joke, because You know, he does dark things. In his first story, he throws someone off of a building and they plummet to their death. You know, he has that evil, and yet he has charm, and he is quite camp as well, but in a very different way to Anthony Ainley, in a very positive way. And while Capaldi and Gomez may have come close, for me, nobody tops Pertwee and Delgado when they're on screen together. It's just absolutely magic. The Sea Devils is a great example of this. Some of the scenes that they share in that one, such as the sword fight and the scene when they're having a chat, and then John Pertwee goes to shake his hand, but then he just thinks better of it. You know, it's just that underlying respect. And there is a reason that this character has endured for 50 years next year. And the reason is Roger Delgado. He is the original, he is the best, and you will obey him. Please tell me your thoughts in the comments down below. I'm sure you disagree with me, but I would love to know who you think is the ultimate betrayal of the Master.